Okay. Hello, everyone. I think I'm live. Yes, I am. Okay, I'm gonna give a little time for some people to join. This is scary. I'm gonna be honest. I've only done this once before, and it was with someone else, so it feels like the pressure's on. Right, well, let's start by showing, wow, the numbers are jumping. Hello from Indonesia, amazing. I'm in New York City right now. All right, so this is an exciting moment for me. I had seen, I've been working on this book for, actually okay, I'm so nervous. I can't believe it. This is my book. So it's a pretty bizarre feeling to come home and open a box and realize that the thing that you've been working on for 3 years is in your hands. It's obviously very different to have a PDF. And, I had been messing with the order of the essays and just editing and doing final passes and edits. So to have the book, all these essays that I've been working on at various different points in the last 3.5 years, bound together in this book is just surreal. And I'm really excited to talk about the book a little bit. So the idea was to show you guys the galley and, have that moment of like, oh my God, it is a trip to see your book in person. But I just felt like, I don't know, just that it was a little cheesy for me to open the box and that it wouldn't be doing any service to the book and the content. Also, just this is a totally different side of myself than I've ever shown the world. And I felt like talking to you directly was better than pretending, or not pretending, but just having that moment of like, oh my God, the book's here, I'm so proud, whatever. So a bunch of you sent questions yesterday, which is really cool. They were actually really great questions, and I had to think about a lot of them. I wrote them down. But I thought I would just talk a little bit first about what the book is about, and even just the format of the book, because I don't think everyone knows. So it's a book of essays. Let's see how many there are. This is the title page. If you get a signed copy, this is the page I've been signing so many of. Every night I watch TV after Sly goes to bed and just sign away. This was published by Metropolitan Books. It's dedicated to Sly, who's 6 months old and got his 6 months shots this morning, and Mom got her flu shot with him, so solidarity. Here is a list of all the essays. There's an introduction. They are not in order of my life. One of the questions people asked me was, why not memoir? Why essays? I've always loved reading essays. I like books and I like novels and I like memoirs, but there's something it's almost like listening to an album. Like each song has a different tone, and that's why the order of the essays was so crucial to me and important, was to be able to hit all these different kind of moments and focus on one idea rather than try to, talk about every single thing in a different, they're not chapters. To me, they're very much like their own pieces. So they're not in chronological order, but I would say that the beginning does sort of have more stuff from my earlier life, like childhood and high school, and even just like when I was 19 and starting to model. I'd left college and was living in New York and LA and trying to just make a living as a model. So let's see. I'm looking at some of the questions, but I think that I should just talk about kind of why I wrote this book. I started writing these essays without any intention to publish them really, or to write a book. It was more just for myself. There were a lot of things that I was working out personally, but also just politically, and kind of questioning my beliefs and, the way that I saw the world. And I would get an idea and I'd start writing in the notes of my iPhone, and then eventually I would write so much that I had to transfer it to Google Doc, and then I would go in through there and edit. I can't remember which essay I actually wrote first, but it was not, it really was a kind of natural process for me. Also, like I said, I just love essays, and I read a lot of them, so it was fun to sort of think about different formats of essays that I'd enjoyed. And it deals a lot with, I don't know how many people know how outspoken I've been about my beliefs around sexuality and women's empowerment, an overused word, I think, these days, but one that people have a lot of opinions about. And certainly is dealt with in this book. But I was very, throughout my kind of early 20s, felt like everybody back off. A woman commodifying her body and being sexual can be powerful and great for her. And who's to say it's, anti-woman or misogynistic? And I really had that point of view. And, I'm seeing some friends. It's very nice. Hi, guys. Hi, Harley. And as I got older, I sort of started to realize that there were a lot of experiences from being the person that I am and from commodifying my image and my body that had made me very unhappy, and were sort of what these experiences were evidence contrary to the position that I had in this very public way about body and ownership and empowerment. So these essays are exploring the relationship I have to my body and to the market of bodies, of modeling, and really to men. I wanted to read more books about female desire, about the way that women look at each other, they look at themselves. It's something I'm fascinated with, and there weren't enough for me. I think one of the books recently that, I love, Lisa Taddeo, Three Women, I think deals with that in a really cool way. But I wrote the book that I wanted to read. And a lot of it is about talking about the sort of deeply embedded power dynamics that are often unspoken, that every woman deals with. And I think we feel it in our female friendships. I think we feel it with men. And it was just important to me to sort of talk about the things that, even with my closest girlfriends in the most vulnerable situations late at night when we're, going to sleep or whatever, somebody's gone through some heartache and we're talking about our insecurities and how we feel about our position in the world, about our lives, about how we look. I wanted to have a book that sort of had that tone. So it's really stripped down. It's very vulnerable, which, if you guys have read the New York Magazine piece, which New York Magazine pulled out of my book proposal as the essay to publish for them, you got a taste of sort of what the book deals with. But they're all different. So it's not just being a young model on shoots. It's also just being a girl in high school and, losing my virginity, and also just the experience of being in my body in different situations and scenarios. So while it is industry related, because the industry that I'm in is about bodies and sexuality and women, it's also, I hope, something that even if you aren't interested in the industry, as a woman just existing in the world, you'll be able to connect to. Okay. I feel like I've been talking for too long, but I'm very excited for you guys to read this and anxious to hear, what people think about it, because I'm definitely not trying to answer questions. I actually still don't totally know what my beliefs and my politics are in some ways around this stuff. And these essays were written to ask questions and to start conversations. Okay, should I do books now? Should I talk about books that influenced me, or should I answer some of your questions? What do you all think? I'm waiting for votes. Should I do books or questions? I'm going to talk about, I'm going to do books. So, okay. So I have 3 books that I wanted to talk about today. One of them I don't have in person, but they're all essay collections. I think I've talked about a few of them before, but if you haven't heard of them or haven't seen them, I'm very excited. So this is The Empathy Exams by Leslie Jamison, and it's one of my favorite essay collections. I think she's probably one of the best living writers. The first essay I would say is probably one of my favorite essays of all time. It's The Empathy Exams, and it's really smart because it goes between the personal and she's basically she does this exercise where she's an actress for like medical students to test how empathetic they are and how careful they are with patients. And it's sort of taking the ability to empathize and what kind of empathy should we expect from other people? What do we, it's really a genius essay. If you read one essay just from coming out of this, I would say that would be the one. So this is definitely top of the list. This is another book that I know I've talked about on here because it's a book that I always give to people and talk about a lot in general. The Reckonings by Lacey Johnson. So she wrote a memoir that's excellent, but this is sort of a I would say it follows what was in the memoir, and she makes that very clear. You don't have to read the first book to read this book of essays, but she's talking about what justice looks like, which I think is a really interesting conversation. Like, especially we live in a cancel culture sort of world. She had somebody that she used to be close to did some pretty terrible, unspeakable things to her, and she wrote a book about it. And after all these people were saying to her, like, what do you think justice looks like? And this is about processing that. And it's not just about that experience. It's also, she talks about climate change and she jumps all over, but she's just very smart at weaving a lot of different ideas together. So highly recommend. I just think she's brilliant. There's really not much else to say. I don't think enough people have read this book. I think more people have probably read The Empathy Exams, and I love this. The other book is How to Write an Autobiographical Novel by Alexander Chee. He's really, again, also had a book that he wrote that's a novel, but it is autobiographical. It turned out that it was a very personal experience that he had fictionalized, and they're a collection of really gorgeous essays dealing with a kind of more of a variety of issues. I feel like The Reckoning's more specific, but again, just really beautiful pieces that you can read. The other thing that I love about essays is it's like, again, an album. It's like listening to one song and then you can like put the book down and come back to it. So I think that's really amazing. And also, nonfiction just to me has this weight, or I think the fact that that you're reading someone who's really bearing themselves kind of raises the stakes. So I like reading nonfiction, especially when it's personal. So those 3 books that I wanted to talk about. This is not a book of essays, this is a memoir, but In the Dream House, Carmen Maria Machado, who has written also Her Body and Other Parties, which is a great collection of short stories. Highly recommend that. But this book probably influenced my book more just because it's such a personal experience, and the format is really unique. So she has, like, I'll show you guys. There's some chapters that are just one page. So it reads in this really interesting way, almost like vignettes that build into a longer narrative. And it's all a metaphor for a dream house, for this ideal life. And it has all these historical references. It's really, really well done and cool. So I recommend The Dream House. Okay, let's do some questions now. I'm only going to do, I feel like lives, you don't want to be longer than 20 minutes. The truth is I've never really watched that many lives. I've watched IGTVs, but I feel like I just kind of skip through, so maybe that's what people do with this, which is great. Okay, why essays and not memoir? I already talked about. Oh, I liked this question. Essays, do you plan out ahead of time, or like what? I do not plan out essays ahead of time. Usually what happens, and I think I said this earlier, I get an idea, I start thinking about, even like I go out to dinner with some friends and we have a conversation about something, or I don't know, and it gets my wheels turning, or I'll read something, or I'll see something online, and I just can't not write about that, and it usually comes out and it's embarrassingly bad. And it'll be in my notes, and it's basically no one else could read it. And then if I keep going back to it and keep thinking about it for the next couple days, then I'll sort of keep going. Like one of the essays in the book is about visiting the Korean spa in Los Angeles, which I love. I've been doing since I moved to LA when I was just out of high school, and why I love the Korean spa so much. But obviously there's a lot of other elements about my relationship to my body that came up through talking about that experience. But that's a good example of sort of something that I just couldn't not. I was like, why do I love the Korean spa so much? It really gets me going. I get really excited when I talk about it. Did you have a deadline? How long were you working on this book? So I did have a deadline. It was right after I gave birth, which was extremely stressful, and it was a trip because I did have mom brain and was trying to finish, kind of the most important thing I'd ever worked on, while also breastfeeding a newborn and not getting a whole lot of sleep. But I did it, which was great, and it actually allowed me to write the last essay that is sort of deals with also birth, or I talk about that a little bit, and the way that my relationship to my body has evolved over the years. So how long was I working on it? Three and a half years. How did you make time to write? So the unfortunate thing about writing is that you can have a day where you're writing, where you're supposed to be writing all day, and just nothing happens. And that was really the hard part about having a deadline, was I realized, like, oh my God, the few days that I did have to say, okay, I'm not doing anything else, I'm just writing, sometimes I would sit down and write a paragraph and would hate it, and it was awful, and yeah. So that was really scary. How did I make time to write? Was just, sometimes it meant staying up really late, sometimes it meant waking up early, it meant having just blocks of time where I couldn't be disappointed in myself for not getting enough done. But I did it, so that feels nice. Essay that was hardest to write. So the essay that was in New York Magazine was definitely one of the hardest to write. I actually wrote it as an exercise, sort of for the one of the sort of most personal narrative about my experience with Image and with the photographer. I wrote for myself. I was on a plane, like a 12-hour flight, and I couldn't sleep, and I just started writing about it. And at one point I thought, like, okay, this is just bad writing, and I'll probably never share this with anyone, because I just needed to get this out so I could process this experience. And then it fit into the idea around ownership and image and, all of that. And I was like, actually, maybe it's not half bad. That one was really difficult. They're honestly, there's one about my first boyfriend that was really difficult. I actually still don't really like to read it. I think that though I don't want to give too much away, but some of the essays I sort of had to talk about things that I wanted to forget or wanted to not write about or even be known for talking about, but it was crucial to sort of the overall thesis of the book and what I was hoping to accomplish with the book that I included them. So yeah. Difficult part of the writing my book, I think I told you guys what was so difficult, what inspired you to write this book. Again, I think just not having enough conversations or really honest books in the world that were from a female perspective, that were talking about unspoken power dynamics, about sort of the way that women relate to each other, and making it really personal and not just fictionalized. That was important to me. And I think also just being a person in the world that had been outspoken in one way, and then my politics and my beliefs evolving and wanting to, express the nuance in the way that my beliefs had changed and evolved. Yeah. So I'm gonna sign off now, but thank you all for watching. I don't know if I can put a link in here. I'm going to try, but you can pre-order. Good luck. Which, yeah, I'm pretty thrilled about. It's really strange to be putting it out into the world, but I'm looking forward to you all reading it, and maybe I'll do more lives. I don't know. We'll find out. All right. Thanks, guys.